you all want to take the conversation. I want to first acknowledge my very good friend, my fellow alumni of the Florida Agricultural and Mechanical University. I don't know if you all know him personally, but if you don't, you should. His name is Dwight Bullard. He formerly served in the Florida Senate and is now helping to lead an organization called the Florida New Majority, and is here. If you have not signed the petition around felons' rights restoration, Dwight has on that clipboard the ability for folks who want to join that effort to do so. So Dwight, I don't know if you want to push it around the room, or if y'all want to see him when we're done. I'm a big supporter and advocate of rights restoration in this state. There are roughly 1.6 million Floridians who do not have their rights after serving their time in the criminal justice system in this state. Y'all are familiar probably with the term double jeopardy. Double jeopardy means you cannot be charged twice for the same crime, right? You cannot be tried twice for the same crime. Yet in our state, and largely in society writ large, it seems you can be punished repeatedly for making a mistake. Employment opportunities are more difficult to come by. Educational opportunities are more difficult to come by. You can't live in public housing per federal government and state rules if you have a criminal background history. And so what I like to share with my Republican brothers and sisters is one thing to tell people to pull themselves up by the bootstrap, but acknowledge that there's some folks who don't have boots to pull up on. And when we set up a framework under which people aren't able to make a way for themselves and their families, where we shut them out of job opportunities and educational opportunities and housing opportunities, we are setting them up, frankly, to move back into a cycle, in my opinion, of the criminal justice system, which I think is dangerous, it's unrelenting, it's not good for neighborhoods, it's not good for society, it's not good for the individuals or their families. And that's an issue that I've led on as a city commissioner in Tallahassee, and obviously also in my role as mayor of the city of Tallahassee. I got involved in government when I was a student at Florida A&M University in Tallahassee. Dwight will know this well. Dwight was our director of student lobbying, so he was the one who had us going down and protesting at the legislature all the time over everything. But being in Tallahassee, it gave you a real acute awareness of the political system, how it works. Y'all have heard the term power sees nothing without a demand. Well, we got to experience that live and in effect in Tallahassee, where we would advocate across a whole range of issues and would oftentimes run up against the wheels of power because we didn't vote, they said, because young people they accuse of not being politically active and involved. Oftentimes we would meet with deaf ears because they had a point. As young people, we didn't vote out power. As young people, we didn't often show up in the system enough to hold elected officials accountable who we disagreed with. So I ran for the city commission or the city council in Tallahassee when I was 23 years old. I was still a student at FAMU and the youngest person in Tallahassee's history ever to get elected to the Tallahassee City Commission. And one of the things that I did on the way to campaigning was we engaged as many students in the process as we could. We talked to as many students as we could. We told students that maybe you might not be from Tallahassee, but you're going to be here at least 4 years of your life. And when you call the police department or the ambulance or you got a complaint about your landlord, it's Tallahassee that has to respond, not Miami-Dade. And so we need you to be registered here at least for the period of time that you're going to call this community home. And it worked to the extent that we moved the amount of students participating in that process drastically, increased on the campuses of Florida A&M and Florida State University. Now, nearly 15 years later, I serve as the mayor of Tallahassee. And I think what I would want you to know about my service as mayor is that we really leaned into the challenges that have been confronting our community. Everything from how you train the next generation of workers for the tech jobs that exist in our community, to how it is that in an era of Donald Trump as our president, who chose, instead of standing with the community of nations when it came to the Paris Accord and addressing climate change in this, not just this country, but in the world, he decided to pull us out of that agreement, preferring to be in the company of Bashir al-Assad than the community of responsible and respectable nations. That very same week, I was breaking ground on a 120-acre solar farm. We had a governor in this state, Governor Rick Scott, who basically said he's not a scientist and therefore can't say whether or not global climate change is real. Never mind that on a non-rainy day in Miami, we're closing down the streets. High tide, a natural occurrence. We have a governor who, when President Obama expanded Obamacare, this governor told 1.2 million of the most medically needy people in this state, good luck on how you get your health care. And so deciding not to extend health care, he shot back to Washington, D.C. about $51 billion that would have otherwise come into this state to make sure that we can provide health care for those who need it the most. The other sin to that, though, and I know y'all got a lot of nursing students and nursing graduates, is that we have a nursing shortage in this state. Can you think of what it would have done to have $51 billion flowing into this state, the number of nurses, nurse practitioners, doctors, all those technicians, home care workers that could have gotten a job, and those could have been jobs that paid wages, that gave people jobs with dignity. And when I say jobs with dignity, I mean jobs that also allow for folks to be able to work one job just to make ends meet. You don't got to work multiple jobs. And unfortunately in this state, where 45% of the people who work in this state say that they cannot make enough to make ends meet. They don't make enough working their jobs to pay the bills. And so I envision a state where not only does science matter and we lean into the global climate change challenge and create the kind of jobs of the future that create, in my opinion, wages that are wages with dignity, where we have a healthcare system that is responsive to folks, where we have an educational system in this state that doesn't test our kids to death, where we pay our teachers what they're worth and don't refer to them as failures or tell them that they're teaching in failure factories. I don't know about y'all, but for a public education school teacher, I certainly wouldn't be sitting with you today, not as the mayor of the city of Tallahassee, and certainly not as a candidate for Florida governor. I had teachers who cared about me, who poured into me, who wished me well, and then gave me the basic tools that I needed to go on and to compete, to become the first in my family to graduate from high school, and then the first in my family to go to college and graduate. You can't tell me that I don't know what it means to see intergenerational poverty interrupted at the hands of a good public quality education. And for y'all who are at the university level, I want y'all, when you graduate from this fine institution, I don't want you to be on the first thing flying out of here, going to Palo Alto, into Charlotte, into New York, into wherever city you think you've got to go in order to take your talents. I want you to choose Florida as a place where you can start your businesses, where you can start your organizations, where you can pour back into this community, into this state. If you came from someplace else, I want you to make Florida your home. But we got to create the kind of economy that makes way for you to do that. But it requires a governor who sees a North Star for this state and is going to work diligently to make that possible for you. And I plan to be that kind of governor for you. I know that there's not a lot about me that would suggest I should be thinking about running for governor, let alone sitting here running for governor. But I want you to know that I've heard those sayings before, what you can't do, what you're not old enough for, what you're not qualified for. What you ought to know is I'm the most qualified candidate on the Democratic side with almost 15 years of public policy making experience. That I have led across a whole range of public policy issues, from criminal justice reform to education reform, to creating pathways for people to get to work, to reforming the system so that all of us can have an opportunity, not just the well-connected and the well-heeled, but that each and every one of us also gets to be reflected in our government. As I've heard a good mentor of mine once say, if you are not at the table, you're likely on the menu. Right? So we have to be at the table. I'm planning to have a seat at the table. And I need your help in order to get a bigger seat at the table so that we can start to turn this state into one that is responsive to our needs. One that sees us and recognizes us and what we bring to the table, what we have to offer. So with that, I'm going to stop talking, and I'd love to engage with y'all, answer any questions that you might have, hear from you about your thoughts and what most concerns you about Florida. And maybe even broader, the society that we all get to live in this great country of ours, that regardless of the embarrassment of a president that we have, that each of us can commit ourselves to working hard and to working diligently to create the kind of society where all of us feel heard, respected, reflected, and let our issues get addressed. So with that, I'll stop talking. Mr. President, you can